Okay, so today we're going to be talking about long division review. We're going to just talk about what does it mean when we're doing long division. So I want to start with how do we do division and how do we learn division? Oh, probably back in, I want to say fourth grade probably. Let's say we're taking a problem like 4 and we're putting it into a really long number like 17625. All right, so what you first say to yourself is you say 4 goes into 17. It doesn't go into 1 at all. So you have to go 2 numbers over. You say 4 goes into 17 4 times. And then you come over to the side and you say, okay, what's 4 times 4 in your head? And you think of this and you say it's 16. And then you write down the 16 here and you draw a line. And then technically what you do is you subtract it. A lot of times we give up. We didn't even write subtracting, but we subtract it. So now we're going to go 17 minus 16, and that's 1. And then we bring down the next value. So we're going to bring down the 6. And we say 4 goes into 16 how many times? Again, 4. You come over the side again. It just is happening that it's 4 times 4 is 16. It's going to be 16. And we're subtracting here, and we get a 0. So we bring down the 2, and we put a 2. 4 doesn't go into 2, so we put a 0 here. And we have to bring down another value, and we bring down the 5. And we say to ourselves, how 4 goes into 25 6 times, and you go off to the side and say 4 times 6 is 24, and you put the 24 here, we subtract it, we get 1 for a remainder. For the remainder, usually we could, a lot of times when we first learned, we put the remainder 1. We don't get to do that anymore. At one point we said really that's like 1/4. You put the remainder over what you were dividing by. Okay, so we had a nice explanation of what to do with long division when it was all numbers. Now we're going to go over what do we do with long division when we are multiplying, and I don't know why this didn't show up as a multiplication sign, but that's a multiplication sign, or excuse me, a division sign. I misspoke. Sorry. It should be a division sign there. When we have a polynomial, and we're dividing it by a binomial in this case. So again, we're going to write what we have, the first value, and we use kind of the same division symbol that we've used before. All right, and now we're going to ask ourselves, how many times does this x get into this x squared? In other words, what I ask myself is, what do you have to multiply this x by to make it equal an x squared? And the answer is x. So you kind of go off to the side and you do this. You go x times x plus 2, a lot like what we did before. And the answer is x squared plus 2x. So then we write down x squared plus 2x. Okay? And then here we want to take the opposite sign. So we want to subtract this. So we're going to subtract here, subtract here. So that's subtracting. And our answer now would be, here'd be a 0, and this would be negative 7x. All right, and we're going to bring down the 4. Okay, and now we're going to ask ourselves, this x here, what times this x now will give me a negative 7x? Well, a negative 7. So again, off to the side, we're going to take negative 7 times our x plus 2, and we get negative 7x minus, sorry about this, minus 14. All right, negative 7x minus 14. And then remember that we have to change it and we have to subtract it. So subtracting a negative actually turns it into plus a positive. Here, this would be a positive. So our remainder here would be, 18. Okay, because this would be my 0. That's what I was hoping for. So I'm going to put my remainder 18 over what I was dividing by, x plus 2. So this here is my answer. Okay, let's do another one. All right. This is from the worksheet that we have as an assignment. So my first problem here turns out to be, let's see if I can get this here a little bit bigger. There we go. Let's get rid of the dotted lines. All right. So the first problem turns out to be, we're going to take here x squared plus 3x minus 7. And actually, I'm going to move that down a little bit. There we go. And I am going to divide it by x plus 1. That's what we have here. So now we're going to say in our head, what times this x equals this x squared? And the answer is x. So a lot of times what I do is I just think about it in my head over here. A lot of times I do this step in my head, but it helps to look and see what we're doing. We're taking the x times the x plus 1. And we get here x squared plus x. So this is x squared plus x. Now my step is subtract everything. So I'm going to subtract here and subtract here. So I get 2x here. This was my 0. I'm not going to write down 0. And I have to bring down minus 7. Okay. So next step. What do I multiply this x by to make it look like this, 2x? I have to multiply it by a 2. So I'm going to put my 2 out in front here and kind of do this mental math and say, what do I get for an answer? 2x plus 2. So I write that down, 2x plus 2. Now I have to do the opposite sign. I'm subtracting, remember? And so what I get for an answer here is a negative 9. So that's like my remainder. So now my remainder here is negative 9. I could have put also minus 9 over x plus 1. Okay? One more. I'm going to go through, I'm going to pick one here that I need to go through that I like. I like number 4. Let's look at number 4, please. So in number 4, we have x squared plus 11. And we're dividing it by x plus 2. Now we're going to get in trouble if we just leave it like this. Because when we write these out, we need to have each and every term, as you descending term, identified or in here. So we can't just have plus 11 because I don't have the term for x to the first power. So what I have to do is I have to add an x to the first power in there. So what I do is I add a 0. So I say that's like 0 times x to the first power, and then here times 11. Okay, so if you don't have a term here, like here in number 4, you have to add in a 0. Okay, so now we can solve this better. Well, how do you multiply this x to get, or what do you multiply this x by to get x squared? And the answer is x. So again, off to the side, I'm taking x times x plus 2. I get x squared plus 2x. All right, that's what I'm going to write here, x squared plus 2x. Next part of this is I have to subtract both things. So I change this both into subtraction. So what I get for an answer here would be negative 2x to the first. I'm just going to write it as negative 2x. Bring down here my plus 11. And what do I have to multiply now this x by to get negative 2x? And the answer is negative 2. Because negative 2 times x plus 2, that's kind of what I usually do in my head here, is negative 2x, minus 4. All right, so negative 2x minus 4. I have to change it and change the opposite sign, so it's going to be plus and plus here. And the answer that I get is 0 here, and it would be 15. So I'm going to take my remainder and put it over what I divided by. Now, for the slant asymptote, and this is what we're going to do tomorrow. Instead of having this be my answer would actually be this, y equals x minus 2, and we kind of ignore the fact that we have a remainder. So we don't really deal with the fact that we have a remainder, and we're looking for an equation. So each time we were looking for an equation when we're looking for slant asymptotes, and you'll see those in tomorrow's lecture. So here, again, I'd be looking for an equation. Tomorrow I would have given an answer of y equals x plus 2. Okay, just a coincidence that they both turned out to be x plus 2 with a different remainder there. So hopefully you get some practice. I want you to do this worksheet. Mostly the first side is the really good practice. The back side, if you're assigned it in class, go ahead and do it. If not, Mrs. Kennedy's class is just having them do the front side of the worksheet, which I believe is through 8. Okay, don't forget about missing terms here. So like this one I would write down here is negative 3x squared plus 0x plus 6. That's what you're going to be taking and dividing by x minus 1. Good luck.